Hi, welcome to the Upside. I'm your host, Paul Santinello. This is the show where we talk about all the good things going on in our town and our region. Today, I'm very honored to have with us as our guest Bruce Landon. Bruce, thank you for coming in.
Thank you, Paul.
Bruce is the Director of Hockey Operations and a consultant with the Thunderbirds, and you're my version of Mr. Hockey in Springfield, because anything that I've ever known about hockey in Springfield, you've always been somewhere around there.
Well, it's just been a long career, I guess, Paul, a long time, and I've been able to hang on for a long time, thanks to a lot of great support from great people. But it's been a wonderful career, and I'm on the sort of the last leg of it, I guess. But it's all exciting what's going ahead right now.
All right. So one of the things I found out, I do my homework on the people I have here. So you're a workaholic.
Yes.
What are you going to do?
Well, that's probably why I only retired for 7 days. You know, I think my honey-do list was getting too long. I said time to get out of the house. But I love to work. And I've been very fortunate. I've been having what I don't call a job. I've had just an opportunity to go to work every day, be surrounded by people I really enjoy, and doing something I love. And I think that's what it's all about. I mean, hockey's been in my blood since I was a young kid growing up in Canada. And I've been fortunate enough in my career to go from the playing days right into the front office, and really have never looked back. So it's been a very great career in the sense I'm doing something I like. And retirement's going to come. I mean, I got asked to step back in and help out with the Thunderbirds with the new team when Mr. Picknelly called me, Paul did, and happy to help out. And I'm sort of acting as a business consultant on the business side, and sort of being the liaison with the Florida Panthers on the NHL side, and doing some of the hockey administration stuff. Basically doing a lot of things that nobody knows has to be done at this time of the year.
Yep.
But we'll see. I'm looking forward to the year coming up. It's been fun for me. There's no real heavy lifting anymore. I mean, I don't have the stress on me that I had all the years when I was running the franchise. So it's good. But what am I going to do? Had I stayed retired, I would have got busy. I mean, retirement's not in my blood. I would have done some volunteer work. There's a couple things very close to my heart, so I would have done some volunteer work. But I would have found something to keep busy, at least in the mornings, because I'm a 5 o'clock in the morning guy. So
there we go.
So it's you got to stay busy.
I could have called you this morning. So, and quite frankly, I mean, you've had every facet. I'm going to go back to the beginning, but you've been involved in hockey in Springfield in every facet from the days that you were playing here.
Right.
And to being part owner of a team, to being a goaltender on a team, to hawking season tickets, and I mean everything, right? I mean, you've done the whole gamut for them.
Yes, I have, and I didn't come out of college with any sports marketing degrees or any fancy degrees. I was able to do something really hard to do now, and that's sort of on-the-job training, if you will. When I retired as a player in December of 1977, George Leary, who owned the Springfield Indians at the time, just asked me if I wanted to go in the front office. I did a little sales work the summer prior to that for George, so I had a little bit of experience. But I also, during my hockey career, I always wanted to be one of those guys that would go out and do a lot of public appearances. I didn't mind doing public speaking, where a lot of players would shy away from it. So I had a little bit of experience in that kind of thing. So I was able to go right in the front office and was able to work my way through the various facets of our business, from group sales to marketing to public relations to merchandising, even getting to know the concession business a little bit, obviously the hockey side of the business. And the thing about our hockey business, it encompasses a lot of different areas. And so I was able to, public relations and all those things, I was able to get on the job training, and that led me to be able to become general manager, and then the next step as to president, and then as we got fortunate enough to put an ownership group together to buy the franchise.
Yeah. Now you started in Springfield when they were the Kings, right? Owned by Eddie Shore at the time.
No. When I started, Paul, it was owned by the LA Kings.
By the LA Kings. I'm sorry. Okay. Now you came out of junior hockey directly into the AHL. Right. And you're from Ontario originally, right? So what was the adjustment? And how old were you when you came into Springfield?
I was a young 19-year-old. I turned 20 early October. When I first came here, I was still 19 years old.
What was the adjustment like for you?
Well, it was unique, and I'll tell you why. In that I played junior hockey in Peterborough, Ontario. My hometown is Kingston, but I played junior in Peterborough. And Peterborough had a tremendous track record as a good junior team, coached by the late Roger Nielsen, fed a lot of players, the Montreal Canadiens at the time. And Peterborough had a beautiful facility, beautiful dressing rooms. And when I was told by the people at the LA Kings training camp, I was first told I was going to LA because I had a very good training camp. But then they changed their mind late into the night and said, we wanted you to go to Springfield for more seasoning. I got on a bus to come to Springfield from Kingston, Ontario. and didn't know what I was getting into, and stayed at the little motel, which is the Agwell Motor Lodge, which has been torn down and probably should have been torn down 30 years ago, but and walked over to the Coliseum, and the Coliseum, a wonderful building, its charm, everything, but it was, even in those days in '69, it was an old building, old dressing rooms, and I'd come from a better facility up in Canada. But, you know, hockey's hockey, and, you know, you can deal with whatever you have to deal with. And we had a very good team. I was surrounded by a lot of good veteran guys. So the transition was fairly easy for me in the sense that I was surrounding myself with some really good guys and got to know some good people. We had good coaching. Even though I was away from home, I'd been away from home since I was 15 years old. So that part of it wasn't a problem for me, because I left home when I was actually 15 to play junior hockey. So the transition was pretty easy for me, and when I got into Springfield and got to just enjoy the Coliseum and the fans and how close the fans were to you, and I had a wonderful time in Springfield, and it's resulted in me making it my home.
Yeah, and at the Coliseum, they could be very close to you.
Sometimes a little too close, depending on how you played, right?
So what was the day in the life of a 19, 20-year-old hockey player coming into the NHL?
Well, it's totally different than it is now, and I mean totally different. We used to be at practice at 10 o'clock in the morning. You'd practice at 11:30. We used to leave 11:30, quarter 12, 12:30. You'd go somewhere for lunch. You might have a beer if you were of age, and even if you weren't of age, sometimes you'd have a beer. But you know, you'd find things to do. It'd be go to a movie, sleep in the afternoon. You know, it was hard to stay busy. And then if you were a single guy, you'd go out for later on in the evening for a little while. But I was a pretty quiet guy compared to a lot of the players, and we only had a few rookies on the team. There was myself and Butchie Goring and Greg Boddy. Most of the guys were older guys, a lot more married, so we sort of picked our spots what to do. And you know, unlike today, the guys are at the rink at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, and they're on the bikes sometimes before practice. They'll practice for an hour and a half. Then they have major workouts after practice in a full weight room, and then they have some video sessions. So the player today versus the player back when I turned pro in '69, it's a full-time job, full-time commitment. It fills up almost as full day, whereas we were always sort of, by 12 o'clock, 12:30, 1 o'clock, we had the rest of the day to ourselves, so you had to find ways to stay busy.
And one question that I always think about it, or as the season goes on, is the hockey season too long now?
Well, I think it, you know, in some ways it's overlapped. Yeah, at the NHL, and ours overlaps. Our Calder Cup playoffs went longer than the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs this year, and there is some people that think it goes too long, or it should start later, not start as early, because you get all the sports going once. You got the baseball playoffs and World Series, you got the National Football League, and then hockey starting up, and you know, basketball's probably got it right. They start a little bit later. So, and does it run too long? You know, our season is, you know, we're down to 76 games now. We cut it down a few years ago from 80 to 76. There are a lot of people in our league, some of the business people in our league, and some of the hockey people at the NHL level would like to see us even go down to 72 games. But, you know, it runs long, but it's interesting. People say it runs long, but some of the biggest crowds are late in the season. So you wonder, you know, what's that fine line? How many games should you be playing? What sort of makes the hockey people happy and makes the business people happy?
When in terms of running a franchise, Springfield's lost its team 2 or 3 times there at least. I mean, especially since you've been involved, right? Sold to Worcester and so forth. What's the challenges facing any Springfield team, not just the Thunderbirds, which are the new name of, or the new team that's coming in from Portland is now the Thunderbirds.
Right.
What's the challenge? Because hockey fan attendance has changed, and for every sport. I know, you know, if you go to a Patriots game, more people are watching the big screen behind you for the replay as they are watching the sidelines during the game and stuff.
Well, there's a lot of different changes, and we could spend probably a couple hours talking about them, but just to highlight a couple. First of all, the dynamics of the area have changed quite a bit, and that's something to remember. Also, back in, again, 69, 70, when I was playing pro, we used to play only weekends pretty much, Friday, Saturday, Sundays. Never played midweek games, and for the most part, I remember one year we had 26 Saturday nights and 14 Fridays filled up our home date, so we were all weekends. Now, because the growth of the American Hockey League, you know, 30 teams, we have to play some midweek games, and midweeks are a challenge. Getting people and families to come out on a Wednesday night is very, very difficult. So we end up playing some Wednesday games. You play 7 or 8 Sunday games, which are always a challenge till the second half of the season. So that dynamic has changed a little bit too on the dates and what you're dealing with. So the other thing is obviously we have to be honest, dealing with the perception of Springfield in some ways. I think it's mostly perception, to be honest with you. We were talking before we went on the air that, we've had no problems with fans attending our games, any problems. There's a great police presence. Parking is plentiful. So we really not have any problems, but there is a perception of some things of the changing in downtown Springfield, and we're all optimistic with all the great growth going on in the city right now, not only the MGM, but Union Station, other developments, that, there's going to be more people in the streets downtown, and safety comes in numbers as far as I'm concerned. So there's been a shift in a lot of different areas. Hockey itself has changed. The game, the players aren't sticking around here for 5 or 6 years. You remember the Jimmy Anderson days and players who would stay in Springfield for 6, 7, 8 years, and you got to know them as people, not just as hockey players. Now it's a flushing out. If players don't make it in 2 or 3 years, there's a change and they move to another organization, and so you really don't get to identify with the player as much as a person as much as you used to. So, but I think the other thing too is it's tough finding the price points. And I really believe that in the Springfield market. You have to find the price points where you can be successful as a business, but you don't feel like you're gouging the family. Because if we stop concentrating on the family attendance and getting the moms and dads and the kids to come, and we price the prices too high and makes that not affordable for them, it's going to affect attendance. So it's a delicate, slippery slope finding that balance, because the costs of running American Hockey League Club have jumped dramatically over the last 10 or 12 years. So it's that fine, there's a lot of different things working against you, but there's a lot of positives as well.
And then when you just mentioned it, and I think all sports have tried to become family sports, where traditionally that really wasn't your target market. It would have been young white males, or that played hockey, or young guys that played hockey, or fans of hockey. And I mean, that's what I noticed when I went to games 25, 30 years ago. They were young kids, but typically they were with their dad or something. Now it is the whole family affair.
Well, you have to make it, we've always sort of tried to say, you have to make the driveway to driveway experience a good one. That means the time you leave the house, the time you go back in your house, you've had a good experience. And certain things you can control and certain things you can't control. And we always try to control the environment at the games, but the focus has to be on the families and the kids. Right now, most of the teams in the American Hockey League, and the Springfield Thunders will be doing that as well, you really market to the moms. Moms make a lot of decisions in the household.
Yes,
what are you going to do on the weekend? Where are you going to dinner? What the kids are going to do for entertainment? So you have to market to the moms, and you have to make it a safe environment where the moms feel comfortable that their kids are going down to see a professional hockey game. We have a great league, second best league in the world, tremendous hockey. So you want to it's trying to draw the hockey fan, the guy who just wants to go out and see a good hockey game, who doesn't care about seeing his picture on the video board or getting a t-shirt thrown up by the mascot, who just wants to see hockey. But you really have to also cater to the moms and dads and make the full entertainment package. And I think what you'll see with at least what I'm hearing and in some of the discussions I've had with the people running the franchise, there are a lot of really exciting promotional things going on to make it a lot of interactive things for kids on the concourse. And so mom and dad can bring the kids, they can see a great hockey game, the kids can have fun, and again, hopefully keep the prices attractive.
Yeah. And do you think that the American Hockey League, because as a kid growing up, we would know every team in every division, and I know it's expanded, but we used to, we could name the players on the Providence Reds because it was such a heated rivalry with the Kings. Has it gotten too big to where, and the only thing that kind of equates to it, because football and basketball don't have the same operation, is baseball. But baseball's a very different sport because there's so many different levels of it or whatever. But has the American Hockey League expanded too much?
No, I don't think so. No. It's just the nature of the way the National Hockey League is expanding. Our goal back a number of years ago when I was on the board of the American Hockey League was we wanted to get to what we called the 30-30 model. You want to have 30 NHL teams, you want to have 30 AHL teams, and that was done for a lot of different reasons. And so that we've reached that, and now with Vegas coming in the National Hockey League, not this year but the following year, we'll need to add another AHL team. And what we try to do, and the scheduling has become very difficult, we're not going out to play Bakersfield and Ontario and San Diego, although fans would like to see it. It's just cost prohibitive to do that. So we have to really stay within our conference, heavily within our division, add a few outer division games, some conference games, so that we can, for the most part, remain a bus league, at least in an operation like Springfield, an independently owned franchise. If we're not owned by a National Hockey League team, so the bottom line is very important to the ownership group, whoever owns the Springfield team. And so we have to control our budgets by controlling our travel costs. So yes, the league has expanded, which would had to stay stay in that model we wanted with the 30-30 model. But again, we're keeping our schedule pretty much confined within our conference and our division. And so we still have Providence coming in 6 times, and we're going down there 6 times. We'll play Hartford 10 times, 5 and 5. So you try to build your rivalries the best you can. But again, the fans want to see other teams, other uniforms. So this year we've added Toronto, we've added Rochester. We have Binghamton coming back to play us again. So again, our travel costs are jumping a little bit because we've lost a couple teams in the Northeast, which is a little bit of a concern, in itself, losing Worcester and Manchester, that's in Glens Falls. So now that's made our travel more as well, because we've had to make up those games against teams that are a little further away.
Right. And as a young guy growing up in Canada, hoping to play in the NHL, did you ever think you'd see hockey in Florida? and I know they draw well down, right? So they do draw well, and there's my nephew played junior hockey, and there's teams all over the country in Texas and Florida, and they're good size organizations and stuff. Does that hurt the people in Springfield that there are so many teams out west now?
Well, I think the concern, if you look into the crystal ball and you say, okay, what's going to be happening in Springfield 5 years down the road? We can see a push into some major markets. We can see a push where it's been very cyclical on that. Now some of the NHL teams want to own and operate their own AHL franchises, and we still have enough independence, but it's starting to change a little bit. And I think for the future of a team like Springfield, it's important that we keep that in mind, that if we start losing too many independents, then our costs are going up for other reasons as well. You don't control the vote in the boardroom sort of thing, and so some of the expenses go up, because from the National Hockey League teams, if they own an AHL team, they want to watch the bottom line, but for them it's a development cost, and if they lose $1 million or something, it's sort of built in as a development cost for them. Independent owner who's that kind of money, how long are you going to have it?
Right.
So as you look around the Northeast, as I already mentioned, with losing Worcester and losing Manchester and losing Glens Falls, New York, if we start losing too many teams in our geographic area and the footprint of the New England area, or the Northeast even, then our travel costs are going to go up so high that you start wondering, again, I'm looking down the road, can we survive? And that's, again, as I look in my crystal ball, that's the concern I would have. And
I know the NHL teams would love to have their franchises closer to them, which is why some of them are moving, like Springfield and so forth. Is that a corporate decision from the NHL side of it that says, we don't care about the independence?
I have my mixed feelings on that. For many years, the NHL teams didn't care. I mean, the LA Kings had their team in Manchester, and Manchester won a championship, and LA's won a Stanley Cup, and it was never a problem. All of a sudden, one team feels, well, we want our team closer, so the NHL ownership started lobbying with one another and say, hey, we want to start our own little team. We want to bring our team out west. Will you bring your team out west? So there's no question there's upside to having your AHL team close, for the movement of players up and down. But over the course of the season, we've seen it in a number of examples in our league. It really has not been that major of a problem. For years we were affiliated with teams out west. We never had problems getting players in and out. It just didn't happen. But I think for the most part, I think some of the NHL teams like it because it's easier for their management people. It's more easier for them perhaps than it is for players, because their management team can drive a couple hours from the NHL team and watch their team play, scout their team. I know when Arizona bought the Springfield franchise and moved to Tucson, it's not going to be great for development of players. They're going to have less practice. Their practice rink is quite a ways from their main arena. Their travel schedule is horrendous. They're on the plane all the time. Players aren't sleeping in their own beds. So I don't look at it as, and I'm being very honest, I don't look at it as a great development tool for their players. But what it is good for is the Arizona hierarchy. The general manager, the ownership of the Arizona team can go quick drive down to Tucson, and they can be back in their own beds after a game. So it's sort of a mixed. I have mixed reactions about it, but it seems to be the way things are moving now. We're starting to see, will Vancouver be the next one? They're currently in Utica. They sell out that Utica building every single game. Vancouver's very happy in Utica, but are they starting to get pressure on them from the LAs and the Anaheims and the San Jose's to get west to add another team out west? Right. So time will tell.
In the relationship, because over the years, you see Providence is hooked up with Boston, right? And around here, we should have had the Boston franchise. How does the working relationship between the AHL organization and the NHL, especially for an independently owned franchise, how does that work? Does Springfield have any say in who they like to see come down? Or
not really.
No.
Not really. There used to be a little more years ago when I was the general manager. We got involved in signing of some of our own players. Not many because you couldn't afford them.
Do you still do that today?
No, we don't. In fact, I don't think there's an AHL team now. Maybe the Chicago Wolves might sign one or two players. Hershey used to sign one or two, but we're really at the mercy of our NHL team.
Yep.
We pay them an awful lot of money. I wish we had the model that minor league baseball has, but we don't. We pay our NHL team a significant amount of money, and for that we get players. And our input is, it's a unique business in that your National Hockey League team that doesn't own the team in Springfield have control over your product, which then affects your bottom line in a lot of ways on attendance. So it's a unique business model that wouldn't work in a lot of other businesses, and I'm not saying I think that's something that concerns me a little bit, but that's not going to change. So we continue to pay a huge affiliation fee to our NHL partner. For that, we get coaches and trainers and players, and then we run pretty much the hockey day-to-day operation of our travel and the staffing and the marketing and all the things that go into running the franchise, pay the rent, the lease, all that. But as far as having any say, that say is starting to go away. There were years, several years ago, not too long ago, I would get a call from an NHL general manager and NHL AJM, and they would talk about a player. What do you think of this guy? What do you think of that guy? We're starting to lose a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Pretty much we're at the mercy of what our Florida Panthers are going to put in here.
Yeah, good and bad.
Good and bad. Yeah.
Right. So now in the development of hockey in Springfield, how has that evolved in terms of the support from the community for Springfield?
Well, we've always, going way back when we started the Falcons in '94, we put an ownership group, as you know, and kept a franchise and starting in '94. We wanted to really get involved in the community. The Indians were involved, but we wanted to step it up a notch. We just felt that it was important to brand the franchise a little better, to get in front of the youth hockey teams, run youth hockey clinics, get our players out more visible in the community. And we stepped that up for the Falcons. Then when the Falcons are sold, I know the whole, plan of the Thunderbirds is to be very heavily involved in the community, very heavily involved with all the youth sports teams, youth hockey teams, not just hockey. They're doing some things with baseball teams. So you have to get out in the community. You have to get people a chance, and the young kids a chance to meet the players, meet the mascot, feel that they've got an attachment to the team a little bit,
right.
And they're going to step that up. But we've been very fortunate in this area. We've had a good minor hockey area in this area for years, high school hockey, which is really not our target market, if you will, but it's important to us. We've been involved over the years with high school hockey, so we really have tried to be engaged with all hockey at all levels. And now AIC is playing their home games at the Mass Mutual Center, and I think there's a plan on trying to do some things with AIC as well to even step it up a little bit at the college level.
Yeah. And hockey is, to me, it's very different today. And all sports are, because there's a lot more organization at the really low levels, like Sandlot League Up and
Right.
stuff. But primarily, you used to have to come through the junior program, which meant there was mostly all Canadian folks.
Right.
But now it's definitely international.
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
And but there's a lot of United States kids, U.S. kids in there as well, which is, I think, good for the game.
Well, it's good for the game. Hockey's just growing throughout the country, and I can remember 20 years ago we'd have a couple American-born players, and be lucky if you had one European-born player. Now, if you look at our roster this coming season, I guarantee you'll look at our roster and you'll see a mix of Canadians, U.S.-born kids, and a number of kids from Europe as well, whether it be Russia, Czechoslovakia, Sweden, Finland. One of the more dynamic players that we're projecting might be in Springfield this year is a young 19-year-old who'd be 20 when the season starts, who played in Switzerland last year, and he's a little guy that can say, I've never seen him play, but I hear great things about him. So it's hockey in the United States is growing, and hockey in Europe is growing, and some of the players are coming over here because they want to play in the best hockey there is. All the kids that come in here want to play in the National Hockey League, the best league in the world, and we find that there's a lot of Europeans come over. And if they don't make it to the National Hockey League within 2 or 3 years, they'll go back to Europe and play. But they want to give this a chance. So there's no question the growth of minor hockey and the growth of collegiate hockey, in the United States has really, really helped the American Hockey League and been able to add a different dynamic, if you will, to the franchise and the players you put on the ice.
And I want to talk about your career for a little bit. You came to Springfield, was it 68 or 69?
69 was 69. My first year.
And that first year team, was that was the Calder Cup?
That year we went to the Calder Cup finals.
Yep.
We played a round robin series in Montreal, and then we had to beat Hershey. Then we had to beat Montreal. Then we went against at that time Buffalo was not in the National Hockey League. They had a team, and Buffalo ended up beating us in the Calder Cup finals that year. That was my first year as a pro, and then the second year, the 70-71, was the Calder Cup year.
Okay, so see, as a kid, I remember because we used to follow the team and everything and go to the games, but I used to always think, well, if Buffalo could become an NHL team, so can Springfield, right? I didn't realize that, but my brother and I were fortunate that a family friend had for Christmas bought us season tickets to the Indians games, Kings games rather, back then, for the Calder Cup title, and you, on your team, you had some really great players, and that went on to NHL Hall of Famer.
The key players really that year, for the most part, and we didn't have a great year. I was out part of the year, most of the year, with shoulder separation, didn't play in the Calder Cup finals, and I had started out as the #1 goaltender and then get hurt, and Billy Smith took over. Well, I jokingly, every time I see Billy, say, if I hadn't got hurt, you would have never made it to the Hockey Hall of Fame, but Billy was a talented kid. But Butchie Goring and Billy Smith were the two names that people mostly remember from that team. Butchie scored a clutch goal to get it into the finals or get into the playoffs, and Billy was phenomenal in the playoffs. So those are the two guys. Billy went on to a wonderful career in the National Hockey League with New York Islanders for the most part, winning Stanley Cups, and Butchie, of course, went on to a great career, both the LA Kings and the Islanders. So those are the two young guys that came out of that team that really seemed to make it big. And again, that team was blessed with a lot of good veterans that just knew how to win, and some players that had played in the previous year when we went to the finals. To win a championship, doesn't matter what division you're in or what level you're in, a lot of things got to fall into place, and they certainly fell into place that year.
And you went from Springfield to the New England Whalers, not the Boston, it was the Boston Whalers.
Well, I was based out of Boston for a couple of years.
New England Whalers, before Hartford, and I love the logo with the harpoon and whatever.
Still one of the biggest sellers, they say.
Yeah. So, but in your first year there, was it the first year there?
Yeah, first year at WHA. I went to the WHA in '72 simply because my rights were picked up after 3 years with the LA Kings. My rights were picked up by the Montreal Canadiens, and Montreal made me an offer. Their offer was to go play in Nova Scotia in the American League, or if I was fortunate enough, play in Montreal. But the money they offered me was very, very, very low, and the WHA was starting up. And I just said, you know what, I'll roll the dice. And I rolled the dice, got a nice contract in '72, and joined the Whalers, and we won a championship our first year in '72 in Boston. And the WHA was a great league in a lot of different ways, and the WHA was one of the reasons why salaries at the NHL level started to come up, because now players were leveraging one against the other. And WHA had its moments. There's no question about it. There's some great stories and things that happened in WHA. But I was fortunate being on a solid owned team, the Whalers. And then when we moved to Hartford, it was phenomenal. We were drawing 10,000 people a game, and people accepted the team down there, and we had a lot of fun. So I really had 5 good years with the Whalers. I was an original Whaler, proud of it, and I had 5 good years, and it was some of the probably the most fun times in my life in hockey.
But you went from winning the Calder Cup championship to winning the WHA championship, and that's got to be a pretty cool feeling to have, right?
You're in sports, any sport, you strive to win a championship, and I was fortunate enough to be on a Calder Cup team that won. a championship team, certainly winning with the WHA with the Whalers, and then had a couple Calder Cups as well as general manager. Manager. So that's what you strive for. You're in the business to compete and play at the best level and win championships, and I was fortunate to be able to do that a couple times.
So what was the feeling as you won them as a player, championships, and what was the feeling as a general manager to win it? Because there's, like you said, a lot of things still have to break in your way, especially late in the year when the NHL's calling up guys.
Exactly. We were the first Calder Cup year was the 89-90 season. We were affiliated with the New York Islanders. And we had a very good team, good coach. Jimmy Roberts, the late Jimmy Roberts, passed away not too long ago. Jimmy was our coach and just did a phenomenal job of molding that team together. And we got fortunate at the NHL deadline that we picked up a couple players. And it was a team that was led by some great offensive players, great coaching, and great goaltending. And if you don't have goaltending, you don't win any championships. And Jeff Hackett was our #1 goaltender, and he won the MVP of his best player in the playoffs. But the interesting thing is the next year, the decision was made that we couldn't stay with the Islanders because the affiliation fee was getting too high, and the Whalers were just down the road, and they asked us to affiliate with them, where they had been in Binghamton the year before and only had 16 or 17 wins. So it was a bit of a gamble, but we made the roll the dice again, and then the common denominator was Jimmy Roberts stayed as our coach with that team as well. And again, goaltending, Kay Whitmore turned out to be our goaltender and won the MVP. So we had great goaltending, great coaching, and a good group of guys that came together at the right time. But as general manager, it's rewarding. Back then, we were involved a little bit more in player discussions. We brought in a couple players that helped win a championship. Greg Parks is one player that some fans may remember who actually had been playing in the East Coast League, and I got a call from the coach who said, you have to take a look at this kid. And so I said, okay, and we brought him into practice. And I remember, like it was yesterday, I was standing along the boards, and practice was over, and Jimmy skated over to me, Roberts, and he said, Bruce, we got to keep this kid. He may be the best player we have on the team. And Parksy went on and played really well for us, and a couple other players as well. He had a little more of a hand in what was going on the ice. And but winning a championship, whether you're a player or coach or in management, is exciting.
Yeah. And we talked a little bit, you mentioned there's an NHL franchise going into Las Vegas. Is that good?
Oh, I think so. I think, the NHL had to expand. There's some people will say, well, we're watering down the product again. But again, the European influence with all the players, the collegiate influence here in the U.S., and I believe that market's going to do very well. First of all, they have deep pockets. Bill Foley, who's a billionaire that owns the franchise. He's got tremendous corporate support from MGM and others out there. Beautiful, beautiful facility. I understand their season ticket base is already around 13,000. So, I think they're going to do well, and I think it's only a matter of time. You'll see another expansion team. I'm guessing it'll be Quebec City, but we don't know for sure. And I think that number should hold for a little while.
There needs to be more hockey in Canada, quite frankly.
There's only, unfortunately, so many markets I think would support it. I mean, there are some people who would say that you could put another franchise 20 miles in Toronto and it'd still sell it, which it probably would because the demand up there for tickets. But you get into territorial rights, and that I don't know if that's going to happen or not. It's very expensive when you start stepping in other teams' territories. So whether that ever happens remains to be seen. But I'd love to see a team back in Quebec City. I think it'd be successful.
And because we're getting close to our time here, what should fans expect from the Thunderbirds this year? And I know you're not the head of it, but I mean,
no,
I got you.
I'm there every day. It's just I'm there every day, and I'm involved in sort of staying in tune to what's going on. But first of all, on the ice, I think Florida is going to put a young, high-tempo team. I mean, that's the way they've modeled their NHL team, which had great success last year winning their division. They want a high-tempo, quick team. The game is built around speed now, and I think you're going to see that in some of the young prospects they have here, and they have a sprinkling of some good veterans. Goaltending should be a real strength, hopefully. So I think on the ice, it's going to be a high-tempo team, good speed, good goaltending. Off the ice, there's really a focus on marketing right now, branding the team. You go through downtown Springfield, there's banners everywhere. The event they had at Uno's to unveil the mascot and the team uniforms. There's going to be a lot of exciting things going on at the game because we, again, as we talked earlier, promotion, and more promotion.
Yep.
So if you can get the fans coming out and having a good time, whether you win or lose, that helps. And if you can start winning some games, have success on the ice, you start bringing the hockey guy in, and I think it should make for an exciting atmosphere.
Awesome. And you're going to always be around in hockey anyway, because you it's in your blood, and you can't get out of it.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you for coming. This has been, as a kid growing up watching hockey in Springfield, like I said, your name is, besides Eddie Shore's Mr. Hockey, you're Mr. Hockey to me because you've been here. I didn't say this, but Bruce, you're in the AHL Hall of Fame.
Yes.
And I apologize for not bringing that up
fine.
earlier,
Thank you.
because some people would have demanded I bring it up. But no, but I just want to say thank you, because I think, I think the one stabilizing factor in hockey in Springfield is you.
Oh, thank you, Paul.
And I mean that sincerely. I think that your name added credibility to whatever the franchise was at the time and who was owning it. And I don't think, and personally, I think if you weren't involved, it probably wouldn't have been a success or still be here right now.
Well, that's very kind of you, and I do appreciate
Yeah.
that. I've been fortunate, I surround myself with good people too, and that's important.
Yeah.
So I've had to support a family and support some wonderful people who work with me on staff, but it's been a wonderful career, and how much longer it goes, time will tell.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I want to thank Bruce for coming in, because, and folks, we're going to try to get the Thunderbird folks in here as well to talk about their season and what they expect. But if you can go check out the games, I know you can go online and look it up and Google it. And I just want to say thank you to Bruce for coming in. This has been my pleasure to have you on today. I appreciate it. Thank you very much, Bruce.
My pleasure.
And we'll see you on the next episode on the Upside. Have a great day.